Peace World. Thanks for pressing play on another Pay Me No Mind sports and entertainment video. My name is Wood. Just want to jump right into it. Feel free to weigh in if you have any thoughts on the subject or, just additional thoughts or you disagree. I'd love to hear your opinion. Looking at playoff Pete, Paul George, who has this career game last night in an elimination game. It's such an interesting study, in my opinion, or such an interesting thing to observe in real time, where we look at different athletes and just where they are in their career, how they accept adversity or work through adversity, how they take on challenges, how they rise to the occasion, how they fail, and subsequently how it moves into media. And, Paul George is on court or on the court, situations and what he's doing, especially at this time of the year, is a hot talking point for all of the pundits out there. And, the narrative is what it's become for this young man. And I was checking out, I was checking out a partner of mine, the real deal with Damian Adams, and he said that Paul George is a top 10 talent, not a top 10 player, maybe not even a top 15 or 20 player. And I was kind of trying to figure out how to contribute to his discussion. The best thing for me to do was just to shut the hell up and listen to DA's points, which were well said. It's just... So let's go to last night, and I can try to cut to the chase. His body, it comes down to body language for Paul George, and it comes through in the turnovers that we saw. He had a game high 6 turnovers. He had 3 more turnovers than anybody else in the entire game, on both teams. And it's the body language, PG hasn't had to be a leader. And then, it was early in the third quarter, I was like, man, go get involved in the play, go call for the ball, go get the ball. And he seemed to be so resigned to just being off to the side while things were happening. Obviously, though, he scores, 25, if not, 28 or some points in the second quarter. It all comes down, though, to this. Even despite the 6 turnovers, he had a highly efficient game. I mean, when you go 15 or 20, that's quick math. That's 75% from the field. 50% from three-point range. So that efficiency right there and that awesome shooting, that great shooting really overshadowed the body language that I was looking at, the turnovers, the fact that he's not like a confrontational teammate or a vocal leader. That's not really his thing. So you just kind of gotta, he's a different dude to watch. Another thing that played in his favor was, and this is key for all of these guys. In fact, I think this is why LeBron James was bounced in the first round. Nobody came out and showed up for LeBron James in that elimination game against the Suns a couple of weeks ago. Nobody came out with any kind of energy wanting to be great that night. Nobody on his team. Marcus Morris Sr. showed the hell up last night. He shoots over 50% from the field. And both of those guys were 9 of 13 at one point when they put that graphic up there. He went 2 of 5 from three-point range, 2 for 2 from the line, and he poured in 22 points. Reggie Jackson also showed up. He hit a couple of big threes in the second half, went 4-7 behind the arc. He also shot over 50% from the field, 8 of 14. in his shooting. Um, Paul George did lead his team in assists with 6. We don't really look at him as a playmaker for others and setting the table for others. And then he had 13 rebounds. So just shout out to the man for fighting. I think more or less, I think it was just trying to keep the season alive. I don't really think he was out there trying to prove anybody wrong or right about him or change the narrative or whatever. He let the game come to him. I think those back-to-back three-pointers, or whether it was 2 3-pointers on like 3 possessions in the second half that he knocked down. Another thing is, when he actually goes to the mid-range game, he's got a beautiful mid-range jump shot and can get the shot off, can get the separation at his height, 6'7", 6'8", whatever it is. He usually has a smaller 2-guard type player on him that he can shoot over. PG can play. It's just, man, that body language that he had throughout a lot of the game, it's just different from what we usually see from these players who we would consider alphas. He doesn't call for the ball. He doesn't always move without the ball like a Steph Curry. He's not always going and getting the ball. And that's, to be honest, going back to last year, that's what tripped these guys up last year, and they didn't get a chance. They weren't able to address it this year. This is a team that really doesn't operate with a point guard in a lot of ways. I also wondered if him having to bring the ball up the court and initiate the offense and whatnot a lot, if that takes away from his effectiveness. So shout out to Ty Lue, for figuring this out on the fly. And maybe his personality and kind of his demeanor in this pressure situation and some of the things that he said ahead of the game about how they would approach this game. Maybe he connects with Paul George to get the most out of him. So, they get this game, and a lot of it's great. This bodes well for the Clippers because the team that wins Game 5 often wins the series. So for them to get this game is dope. Although I really don't believe they beat. I really don't believe they beat the Suns 3 straight games. I just don't. The Suns finished second in the West. So very rarely did they lose 3 or 4 games in a row throughout the year to be the best team in the West. It just didn't happen. And they have Game 7, in Phoenix. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, man, I just think, it's interesting watching Paul George. And when we talk about mental health, he said he had to go get some therapy or whatever, go do some work on himself last year after the playoffs or at the end of that time in the bubble. He was experiencing some weird things. And we don't, the narrative and the talking points don't change because of that. Stephen A., Max Kellerman, Skip Bayless, Marcellus Wiley, Acho, and all these guys got 2 and 3 hours to fill. Colin Cowherd, all of these guys have 2 and 3, 4 hours to fill, and they're going to ruthlessly fill that time. Saying, and a matter of fact, as it goes back and forth, as the discussion goes back and forth, some of these guys and the different guests come on, and Kendrick Perkins comes on to add his commentary. These guys have to say what hasn't been said by the 2 panelists or the host of the show. And it gets very critical of these guys. So anyway, man, we'll see how Paul George follows this up. He doesn't have his his running partner in Kawhi Leonard, and they made it work last night. So shout out to them. D Cousins also showed up, also shooting over 50% from the field, put in 15 points and got some easy buckets. Last comment, that's another thing about Paul George. Because he doesn't move with the ball, without the ball, he doesn't post up too often. He doesn't go in for offensive rebounds all that often, although he had 13 rebounds last night, all of them defensive rebounds. But he doesn't get a lot of easy buckets. I thought in that game 4, I believe, he was shooting a lot of lazy threes and not working for shots, not getting to that mid-range. So maybe like Giannis, he'll understand that those mid-range buckets are important. And when you go cold from deep, move in 5 to 6 feet and take what you can get. Anyway, my name is Wood. Pay me no mind, sports and entertainment. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.